Greetings to my friends and colleagues, of course, network members as well. Welcome in. The American Acupuncture Council is always going to be your resource for practice protection and practice empowerment. Let's talk about what's been going on with me. I obviously deal with a lot of offices with continuing education and doing one-on-ones on the risk management of getting letters or other things that are asking for money back or saying you didn't do things right. So let's talk a little about risk management. Let's go to the slides. Specifically, this risk management, I want to speak on waiving fees. What I mean by that is, what about deductibles or copays, monies that the patient owes? This is particularly important when you are out of network. Remember, when you're in network, when you have a write-off of a certain amount, that's fine because that's a contract. But when you're outside of network, and realize there are some plans I know on the East Coast that will pay an acupuncturist probably $300 a visit. I love it. Here's my problem. If I'm charging one of them $300, what if another patient comes with an insurance that I'm out of network with? One pays $300, but another one only pays $100 of it. Do I have to collect the difference? And that's what we want to get into. Let's talk about this. Where we get this from is Department of Health and Human Services. This is not Sam's opinion. So I want to go through a few factors here about the legalities and protection for your practice. What it says here from Department of Health and Human Services is each practice can undertake reasonable steps to implement compliance measures depending on the size and the resources of that practice. And it says you can rely, at least in part, upon standard protocols and current practice procedures to develop an appropriate compliance program. Well, that's what we're doing today. This is what we do when we do continuing education. This is what we do one-on-one with network members. So compliance means following certain things, and none of it is hard. In fact, many of you are already doing it. By example, look at the 7 components. Conducting internal monitoring. We're sort of doing that today. Implementing compliance measures, designating a compliance officer, which is probably you, and then training and education, what we're doing. So we want to make sure we're putting ourselves in the right position to understand what are the things we have to do to be a compliant office. Well, really what I want to be more than anything is compliance means optimize your payments, optimize your money, minimize billing mistakes, and reduce the chances of an audit. Well, in doing that, I think we can, but we do have to make sure that we also have a protocol where we avoid conflicts with self-referral and anti-kickback, so-called fee splitting. Now, some of you are thinking, well, Sam, I don't do that. I don't do kickbacks. I don't give patients money to come in. I mean, can you imagine if you have a practice that every new patient gets like a $100 Visa card? No, we don't do any of that, of course. We can't give patients money for referrals, but it goes beyond that because it's, what do we mean by a kickback? So by example, let's talk about fees such as copays. So it talks about here, and this is again from Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Office of Inspector General, waiving copayments, coinsurance, and deductible. And it says very clearly, if a physician's office routinely fails to collect the patient's portions of care, it's considered a violation of both the Anti-Kickback Statute and False Claims Act. You're thinking, what do you mean by that, Sam? Well, let's say someone comes in, they have a $500 deductible, but it's an insurance that really pays well, an insurance that might pay $200, $300 a visit. Well, obviously, within 2 visits, that's going to eat away the deductible. Some also go, oh, I just won't collect it because I'll collect so much on the other side. That is the kickback. Because when a patient comes in and they don't have to pay their deductible, it's just like you've given them the money. The intent is you're to collect it. The same applies just to copays. So be very mindful. I want you to see, though, that the law does give some exceptions here because notice it says a physician's office routinely fails to collect the payment. And of course, at the bottom here, you'll notice it says it is the routine waiver of patient responsibility that can cause serious consequences. And so this is what's prompted this, because I've recently had an office that got this letter from Cigna, and it's not just this office, there's been many, and it's talking at the bottom about fee forgiveness. Let me blow this up. And it says, a review of the billing and collections documents provided show that the patients are only being held responsible for small amounts that would not be sufficient to pay off the total out-of-network balances owed. It says most patients have a payment plan, that's good, and or a financial hardship agreement on file, but there's no documentation to show how the financial hardship was determined. So notice, if there's a payment plan on file, that's fine. There's a payment plan. Maybe they're paying $50 a month, but show that they're making payments on it, not just writing it off. And notice they're saying the hardship, there's nothing on file. You want to be careful. You just don't want to grant a hardship by saying, okay, it's a hardship. You want something documenting so when someone questions it, because what's happening here is this is a particular plan that pays quite well. I mean, hundreds of dollars per visit. So it might be tempting by some. So I want to make sure if you're going to be waiving or doing a hardship, here's what we need to do. Define the criteria. This is not arbitrary. What do you qualify as a financial hardship? And realize there's some variations. There may be things depending on your area, your neighborhood, all of those things. How do patients apply for it? What documentation do you have on file? What is required? How are you approving the discounts? In other words, don't just make it's forever. There's a period of time. And that it's not just simply routine. Oh, everyone with this plan, because it's a high deductible, I waive it. No, maybe this is time to rethink. If you have a $500 per visit charge and some insurances pay it, I don't mind that. I like it. But here's the problem. If I charge one insurance $500, what do I charge another insurance for the same services? The same price. But what if insurance one pays the whole thing? Great. But what if insurance two only pays $100 of it? Well, if you bill $500, how much does the patient owe? $400. That is the waiver you have to be careful of. And maybe the fee's too high. Always be mindful. Don't set your fees off of the best paying insurance, nor the worst. Somewhere in the middle. In fact, I would argue, why don't people come up with a good fee that's a balance for what your charges are, meaning your office cost? And that's the fee. I don't care whether you use insurance or not. Now, I get it. Maybe you charge a few percent higher for insurance just because of the extra work. Okay. But otherwise, the fee's the fee. What I want is to make sure you've got something solid. What is your qualifying criteria? What is you set it on? Is it based on federal poverty level? And that varies from state to state. What is someone making? Now, you might think, oh my goodness, I don't want to ask someone that. Well, if they're asking for a discount and you're going to be the one put on, you know, some type of issue with an insurance, you want to make sure that you can qualify it. And maybe it's not just poverty level. What if someone just has a temporary loss of job? I mean, what if someone was a TSA agent? And it seems funny, but yeah, would that be one you probably would based on not getting a check? I think so. Or what about someone that is uninsured or underinsured? Those certainly could be, but they have other criteria to meet. If you're doing this, make sure you're just not doing it informally. Have something in writing. Notice that carrier signet didn't say you couldn't have it, but it seemed a little too informal. If you've never really developed one, now's your time. Get with me, network members. Let's talk about it. What protocols do you have? How do you set yourself up? But also maybe about, let's do a fee schedule that makes much more sense. We're always here to help. The American Acupuncture is always a resource. If you are not a network member with me and you want to do some one-on-ones with me, join. It's a good way to be part of it. And all the seminars that I do with the program are yours for free. So it includes all the CE programs. Until next time, my friends, go out, be prosperous, and enjoy what you do.